One, two, check, check, 1, 2, 1, 2. One, two, check, check.
Hi, if everyone could take their seats, please.
Check, check. 1, 2, check, check. Check, check, 1, 2.
Steve?
How are you? You having fun yet? Yeah.
Can everyone hear me? Yes, you can. If everyone could start to take their seats, please. We have quorum. If everyone could take their seats. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Madam Clerk, do we have a quorum? Yes, we do. Very good. With that, I announce that the meeting will come to order. My name is Bob Hiss, and I'm proud to be your town moderator. Welcome to this special town meeting. In keeping with our tradition, we'll start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. If the members would please stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now, if you'll remain standing for a moment, we have some guests. These are members of the Milton High School Chorus who are going to lead us in our national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. So I'll proceed by reminding the body that we're still operating under the rules of our May 2024 town meeting. And before proceeding with the business of the meeting, there's certain preliminary matters to be taken up. First, permission has been requested for certain members and personnel of the school committee, planning board, board of health, and other boards, committees, and departments who are not town meeting members to sit on the floor with other members of their respective boards, committees, and departments upon the understanding, of course, that they will not vote. Hearing no objection from the body, such permission will be and hereby is accorded. Second, permission is granted to Milton Cablevision to televise these proceedings. Also, please note that there are 2 side aisle microphones, one here and one over here, each with seats in front reserved for those waiting to be recognized to speak. Hearing no objection, then certain matters coming before the town meeting require a 2/3 vote. This year we have several articles that will require a 2/3 vote. I'll inform you of those before we vote on those motions. We'll begin with just some introductory remarks. If Mr. John Leonard would come up to the podium here, please. If you don't know John Leonard, John has been a member of the Board of Appeals since 1997. He was our chair since 1999, and he's just decided to retire within this past year. So I take that as a long and illustrious career on a volunteer basis helping the town of Milton. If we could offer Mr. Leonard a warm round of applause. Thank you. Thank you, John. I'm sad to announce that we've had some sad passings of some elected officials in town since our last meeting. Ms. Kate Middleton, who was an active town meeting member of Precinct 2 from 23 to 24. Ms. Laura Cahill, who was a past member from 1984 to 2002 for 18 years, and from 2017 to 2021 for 4 years. And most sadly, announced that a member of our Tucker School, a 10th grader in 5th grade, pardon me? 10-year-old 5th grader, pardon me, passed away. Ms. Pierre Louis, and I just thought I'd offer something we say in my church for the death of a young child. So, O God, whose most dear Son did take little children into his arms and bless them, give us grace, we beseech thee, to entrust the soul of this child to thy never-failing care and love, and bring us all into thy heavenly kingdom. Amen. If you join me in a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. With that, I'd like to ask that we proceed to a presentation by our chair of the Warrant Committee, Mr. Tom Caldwell, who will provide us with some opening remarks. So, Mr. Caldwell, you're recognized.
Hello. Tom Caldwell, Town Meeting Member of Precinct 6 and your chair of the Warrant Committee for this year. Some opening remarks I'd like to make. I'd like to ask to the members of the Select Board, our School Committee, our Planning Board, all the other boards, committees, and departments of the town meeting members, and all those present and watching at home, the Warrant Committee welcomes you to the 2025 special town meeting. As indicated in the warrant, which was issued to the town, there are a wide variety of matters for your consideration this evening. There are appropriations requested, zoning matters, bylaw amendments and additions, and also 2 citizens' petitions. A little bit of everything. Similar to what we're going to be doing here in about 2 or 3 short months back again, dealing with business of the town. In our special warrant this evening, there were 8 articles submitted and discussed by the Warrant Committee, of which each was commented on in the printed warrant mailed to each town meeting member. However, the remaining 7 articles, due to timing and complexity of subject matter, those all required additional work, and thus the Warrant Committee comments are on the green sheets that you picked up as you walked in, and they were also made available on the town website. The comments provided in this special warrant are the results of personal research and knowledge, discussion as a committee, presentations by town officials, and the daily observations and experiences of 15 unelected citizens representing the various precincts of our great town. Some are town meeting members, others are not. Some are deeply knowledgeable about the affairs of our town, and some are not. And frankly, some are probably sitting here as they were earlier and saying, what did I sign myself up for? Now, in the Warrant Committee, we ask difficult questions of people. If you've been before us before, you could agree with this. And sometimes strong comments are made, but that is our charge and is what is expected of us. However, one thing is certain, and I want to leave the body with this. The Warrant Committee examines all matters of concern to the town with the knowledge and understanding of human fallibility. Again, I'd like to welcome you to the 2025 town meeting. Let's get to work.
Thank you. So before we proceed to Article 1, we typically do a test of your voting clicking devices here to make sure that everybody is able to communicate, every device can communicate with our antenna. So here we have a test. Do you own a pet? 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 for abstain. Please don't press any other buttons or you could affect the operation of your device. By the way, we're letting this go for 60 seconds because we did have one member who petitioned for an ADA accommodation, which was granted. That member is at home and unable to attend due to this disability. So we have a proxy of the town clerk. The town clerk, I think, is operating as a proxy for this voter. So because of the delay in broadcast, this member needs some time to be able to see what happens on TV and then submit their vote into the clerk so we can record it. That's our accommodation approach for ADA requirements. Our town is divided on pets. Oh, my goodness. So. And someone abstained from owning a pet. I'm not sure what to make of that. Rob, could you put up the results? Let's have everybody scan through and see if your name is missing up here. If it's missing, just make your way up to the gentleman in the white shirt and he will test your device, reset you. By the way, in a first this year, I had 3 members actually send in a decline RSVP with their regrets that they would not be able to attend town meeting. These people were clearly raised right, I think. Thought that was great. By the way, before every town meeting, our IT team over here, they do test the devices. They swap out the batteries in order to make sure this is going to operate smoothly for everybody. Mr. Mallett, are we good to go? Rob, is everyone connected now? Okay, Mr. Mallett, are we all good? All right. We'll proceed to Article 1. Recommended that the town vote to appropriate $60,000 from the PEG Access Enterprise Fund to MPEG Access Inc. for the purposes of equipping the meeting room in the former fire headquarters building to support public educational and governmental access cable television services and to act on anything relating thereto. Anyone wish to speak to this motion? By the way, if I see people seated in the front row, I assume you want to speak. In those first two rows there, if you wouldn't mind moving back a couple rows, otherwise I think we still have speakers. All right, no one? This just requires a majority vote. All in favor, if you could put the question up, Mr. Mallett. All in favor, please signify by pressing 1. Opposed, press no. 3, press abstain. The vote passes with a vote of 224-1. Article 2, to keep things moving, if an article recommendation is more than a paragraph, I'm going to waive the reading, knowing that you have all prepared and read in advance. So, on this recommendation, the Warrant Committee posts a favorable recommendation. What I'd like to do is first recognize Chairman Richard Wells. I think you may have some slides on this. You're going to pass on the slides tonight. Okay? With that, does anyone wish to speak to Article 2? Seeing none, we'll put it up for a vote. Mr. Mallett. All those in favor of Article 2, please signify by pressing 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 for abstain. The article passes with a vote of 220-4. Article 3. This is a favorable recommendation to allow the expansion of alcoholic beverages. I know I do have a member that has proposed an amendment. Warrant Committee member, if we could put up that amendment for Article 3. And Mr. Zulis, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mike Zulis, Precinct 3 Town Meeting Member. Good evening, everyone. The proposed amended article has 3 aspects to it. The first, I'm going to start at the bottom. If you could scroll down to the bottom, because I think that may be the easiest one to explain. The fine associated with this, the use, sale, and possession, drinking of alcoholic beverages, as best I can tell, the fines were set back in 1934 at $25 with a maximum of $100. We've had a bit of inflation since 1934. In fact, I think $1 in 1934 is about $23.55 now. And so that gets you up to about $588 from $25 and then $2,500. I understand just today that there is a Massachusetts statute that limits the fines for violation of a bylaw at $300. So I don't know if you can change this on the fly, but I'd like to change the amendment to say whoever violates any provision of this section shall be fined in an amount of $300 for each offense.
It's your amendment, you can do that.
What's that?
It's your amendment, so you can do that.
If we can do it, then let's do it. So that's the purpose. The purpose of this is really just to recognize inflation, and if we're going to have a fine, let's have a fine. $25 really doesn't strike me as much of a fine for violation of this bylaw. That's number one. Oop. All right. Shall we move ahead? Oh, do you want to do it, or do you want me to wait? Go ahead, okay. All right, so the second aspect of the amendment is really the large part in the red there, and that puts in 4 requirements for allowing the permit for alcoholic beverages on town property. Now, these 4 requirements were in the Warrant Committee's comment, as they were in the Warrant Committee's comment, and I think they're very good ideas, and I think in order to give them force, we should put them in the bylaw. In the first one is to say that all the requirements of Massachusetts general laws shall be met if we're going to allow some of these permits. This was in the Warrant Committee comment, and the Warrant Committee comment states that the Select Board intended to do this, and the Select Board stated that it would do this and it would require this. 2, Romanet 2, which is insurance and indemnity. So we would require that all applicants for these licenses would obtain amounts of insurance and indemnity as determined by the Select Board in consultation with Town Council and the town's insurer. That's in the Warrant Committee's comment, and it says that the Select Board intends to do that. But again, if we're going to have any force here, and if it's going to be applicable, it needs to be in the bylaw. The Warrant Committee's comment states that the Select Board states, and the Select Board will require. I'm not quite sure how the Select Board did that. As we all know, the Select Board can only act by votes. Now, the Select Board may have taken all of those votes to say that they stated it and required it. Not sure that they did. But regardless, Select Boards change. I'm living proof of that. Select Boards change. So in order for these good ideas to have the force of a bylaw, we should include them in the bylaw. The third one is that the alcohol be served by bartenders who have completed appropriate training for that to limit underage drinking and overconsumption. Again, a good idea that we were told in the comment that the Select Board intends to do. We should have it in the bylaw. And finally, that the Select Board would work with the Milton Police Department to reduce potential impacts on adjacent neighborhoods. Again, it says in the comment that the Select Board will do this. This is something that we should have in the bylaw as a requirement. So that's the second aspect of this amendment. The final aspect of this amendment is whether the permitted use, sale, and possession of alcohol would be in town buildings or on town land, in other words, outside, specifically in Manning Park for the Halloween stroll and the Christmas tree lighting. That's what's laid out in the Warrant Committee comment as to the primary intentions of having it outside. Now, we've talked for a long time about allowing the use of alcohol in town buildings for certain adult events. The idea of allowing it and permitting it in Manning Park for the Halloween stroll and for the Christmas tree lighting, that's new. And I think that deserves discussion. And I think it deserves discussion for a couple of reasons. There was no mention in the Warrant Committee's comment about a statement or a position of the Board of Health or the coalition on the potential public health impact of having the sale and the use and the possession of open containers of alcohol in Manning Park during the Halloween stroll and for the Christmas tree lighting. Now, we all know this is a very confined space. and it is surrounded by a very dangerous rotary. So it seems to me we need to hear about whether there are any public health aspects to this. For many years, we have gone to great lengths to try to curb teenage substance abuse and teenage drinking in this town, and the coalition has done great work and made great strides. This, it seems to me, is a step backward when we are saying, let's permit the use of alcohol for family-friendly children events in Manning Park. It seems to me that that is a step that we may not want to take.
Mr. Zulus, 3 minutes.
3 minutes, all right, I'll finish up. The second aspect of this is public safety. There was no mention in the Warrant Committee comment about whether the Chief of Police had been consulted about enforcement of this in Manning Park or in outside spaces. So I presume it wasn't. It seems to me there is an issue here. The Warrant Committee recognized that public consumption without authorization remains criminal activity. So if I'm sitting in Manning Park during the Christmas tree lighting and I have my hot water and whiskey with my little cinnamon stick and my cloves, and I'm standing there on the edge of the park, if I stand one step to the side, now I'm on the sidewalk. If I stand 2 steps to the side, now I'm in the crosswalk. Is that criminal activity that's going to be enforced by the police department? Is it going to be selectively enforced by the police department? How are they going to enforce it? So it seems to me there are public health and public safety issues with this step that may want us to act with a little caution here. I will leave you with this. For a long time, I've represented, about 25 years, I've represented startup businesses and technology businesses. And when people come up with a great idea and a great technology, the most important question is, what problem are we trying to solve? And I'm not sure what problem we're trying to solve to allow alcohol at family-friendly children events in Manning Park, specifically the Halloween stroll and the Christmas tree lighting. And so I think when you balance the fact that I'm not really sure there's a problem, the Warrant Committee says, well, we're trying to have community building and increase participation. Seems to me the participation in those events is outstanding. So I think when you balance the potential public health and public safety concerns against the benefits here, it weighs in favor of allowing and permitting alcohol use in public buildings, but not extending it to the use in public lands, specifically in Manning Park, for these family-friendly children events. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your indulgence. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Zulus. Motion has been made. Is there a second? Does anyone wish to speak to this article? Ma'am, I believe you were first. And Ms. Munger will get to you. Yes, you're recognized. If you wouldn't mind just standing right at the side mic, unless you have a presentation. You do? Okay, thank you.
Will you be moving the slides? Yeah, no problem. Yeah, okay, great. Okay, thank you. While they get ready, my name's Margaret Carrolls. I'm from Precinct 4, and I'm also the director of the Milton Coalition. We're addressing substance use and promoting mental health, but tonight I'm here as a resident and a town meeting member.
And your precinct, ma'am?
Precinct 4.
Thank you.
Precinct 4. There we go. I support all 3 changes to this amendment, but I wanted to speak about the removal of lands in this article. I have a very short slideshow. I've been a town meeting member for 15 years. I know the value of brevity. And it explains the my support of this amendment to Article 3. So Article 3 would give the Select Board a vehicle for approving one-day liquor licenses for events on town-owned property. Currently, the sale and consumption of alcohol is not allowed on town-owned property. Next slide. This would allow events where alcohol is available and consumed in town-owned buildings, such as perhaps the library, where the Friends of the Library might do a fundraiser or gala event, or renting out the Council on Aging for a party, or community building events similar to those that we see at the Milton Arts Center. I am all in favor of bringing people together, fundraisers and revenue generators for our great town institutions. Next slide. However, this article without the amendment would also allow for one-day liquor licenses for outdoor public spaces, like Manning Park on the deck, Kelly Field, Andrews Park, or any of the other great outdoor spaces we have. Unlike buildings, these spaces are open to all, and the events that are mentioned in the comments of the Warrant Committee specifically call out, next slide, the great family-friendly events that occur in East Milton Square, like the Halloween stroll and the tree lighting ceremony. I strongly argue that there is no good reason to add alcohol to these events or any outdoor event that's accessible by children and teens. Why is it not recommended that the town allow alcohol sales and consumption on town land? Next slide. Adult alcohol use can increase underage drinking. Adolescents whose parents drink 5 or more days per month are significantly more likely to drink alcohol than adolescents whose parents don't drink. Because we cannot ignore the impact of adult alcohol use has on the rates of underage drinking. Parents and communities influence the behavior of youth. Adults using alcohol in front of children and teens normalize that behavior. It sends a message that it's okay, and it increases the risk of underage drinking. Next slide. Alcohol policies impact community culture, and that influences the alcohol attitudes, perceptions, and behaviors of youth. Research has shown that exposure to alcohol ads can fuel underage drinking. Milton has been working hard to change the culture around alcohol. This is hard work. Takes a long time. Adopting this policy would be going in the wrong direction. Next slide. I'm sure that you all know the social, academic, legal, physical, and mental impact using alcohol has on young people. I just want to emphasize this last point. People who start drinking earlier in life have a higher risk of using alcohol excessively or developing an alcohol use disorder later in life. This is what we're trying to prevent. Science has shown that children and teens, even young adults, are not just little adults. They are not fully developed, and their brains are different. Alcohol impacts them differently. Next slide. If you want to think about it in terms of money, look at the costs of excessive alcohol use. In 2010, the country spent $249 billion. That's $807 per person. In Massachusetts, it was $5.6 billion and $861 per person. This accounts for lost productivity, property damage, healthcare, criminal justice, and other costs. Next slide. You can also look at the health impacts. We now know that alcohol causes 7 different kinds of cancer. Deaths per year in 2020 and 2021 caused by excessive alcohol use was 178,000. Perhaps most importantly is the impact on families and communities. Alcohol use leads to violence, depression, suicides, and individual and family trauma. Decreasing alcohol availability and its influence is a good thing for everyone. I would like to see these numbers decrease by the time our kids are grown up. As a community, that means we have to pass smart alcohol policy that considers health. Next slide. Milton is not immune to the impacts of alcohol, as this data shows. Alcohol is the most commonly used drug among youth in Milton. Milton adults consider alcohol to be a top health challenge. 14% of older adults in Milton drink excessively, compared to 9% in Massachusetts. In Massachusetts in 2019, there were 55,000 ER visits that were alcohol-related. In 2019, alcohol-related disorders were among the top 10 most common primary diagnoses in the state. Alcohol is a big issue in Milton, Massachusetts, and our country, from teens all the way to our seniors. Imagine how many fewer patients we would have at Milton Hospital if we could erase the impact of alcohol. That being said, I want to let you know that Milton teens are doing great because prevention works. Next slide. Over the last 10 years, youth alcohol use in Milton has decreased by 54%. The longer, yeah. The longer you delay alcohol use among teens and young adults, the lower the chances of developing an alcohol use disorder in the future. Look, alcohol is pretty much available everywhere. Adults are free to use alcohol in a lot of places. But we can decide as a community that we want fun, safe, family-friendly, alcohol-free celebrations that put the health and safety of our community first. Next slide. Please vote yes on this amendment to Article 3. Thank you.
Just an introduction briefly. A citizen, thank you, Ms. Perels. A citizen named Margie Skier of Precinct 7 asked for permission to speak tonight and was granted. Her schedule prevented her from coming, and so she asked the following town meeting member to speak on her behalf. So, ma'am, you're recognized.
Thank you. Jackie Munger from Precinct 7. So like Bob said, I'm reading this testimony on behalf of my neighbor and friend, Margie Skier, resident of Precinct 7, who was planning to be here but not able to because of travel issues. So this is her speaking, not me. She's more eloquent. Dear members of the Milton Town Meeting, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak on the topic of Article 3. I sincerely apologize that I'm not present physically this evening, but I'm very appreciative that my voice is able to be heard, and Jackie is sharing my perspectives on my behalf. My name is Margie Skier, and I reside in Precinct 7. I have lived in Milton for over 10 years. I'm also a professor and interim department chair at the Tufts University School of Medicine in the Department of Public Health and Community Medicine. For the past 2 decades, my research has focused on designing interventions around adolescent substance use prevention. In addition to having a vested interest in youth in our town, I am also recognized nationally as an expert in my field. The majority of my research focuses on the family environment and the role that adults play in adolescent substance use. Therefore, I feel particularly equipped to provide context and recommendations for Article 3. As originally written, Article 3 would allow for day permits to allow the sale, possession, or consumption of alcohol on public town property, including both indoor and outdoor spaces. Some examples, as you had seen in the original article, include the Halloween stroll and the tree lighting ceremony. Events that are more generally geared towards families and youth should not have alcohol as a primary focus. Not only does this detract from the purpose of the event, but it teaches young people that alcohol is a key ingredient of enjoyment in social events and that we cannot socialize without alcohol. Whether we realize it or not, we are also training them as young people and teens model behaviors of adults that they engage with the most. Research has demonstrated that family socialization around alcohol, which includes not only when parents approve or are permissive of their child drinking alcohol, but also how often parents drink in front of their children. And research also shows that there are stronger impacts of parental socialization of alcohol on younger compared to older teens. This also is extended to other adults in kids' lives, for example, their parents' friends, their friends' parents, etc., which we significantly see in outdoor events. In my expert opinion, extending Article 3 to outdoor spaces increases the risk of youth drinking in our town. We have come so far in seeing incredible reductions in youth drinking in Milton over the past decade, and we should do everything we can to continue this trend. Young people have so much socialization around alcohol in Milton, and I strongly recommend that we do not include outdoor spaces in this article. Therefore, I ask that you vote yes on this amendment to Article 3. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Does anyone wish to speak to this motion to amend? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Christine Hodlin from Precinct 2, town meeting member. And I have a quick question. I think it's for the select board. The event that's held up on Adams Street every June with the fireworks, I believe, has alcohol. I know that's not town-owned property, so I was just curious who allows that license if they do have alcohol serving, especially the public health and the public safety of police, monitoring what's going on there, because it's a pretty outdoor space, and is it allowed just there and also other public spaces? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Chairman Wells, you're recognized.
Good evening. Richard Wells, Chair of the Select Board, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 7. I think I heard the question. Was the question relative to Milton Music Festival? So just a follow-up, the Select Board, in answer to your question, does issue one-day liquor licenses to a multitude of locations similar to this, all on private property. That's where they, to include Milton Music Fest, which is owned by the trustees of the reservation, the Wakefield Estate, which is owned by the Wakefield Trust, Eustis Estate, which is now Historic Milton, Curry College, Milton Academy, nearly every private entity that is privately owned in this town already applies for, seeks, and is granted one-day liquor license under the same premise that we have opted to place to the town-owned land, exact same manner. Just the law does not, the restriction does not apply to those, it only applies to the town property. I hope that answers your question okay. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this motion to amend? Yes, ma'am. Ms. Milbauer? Yes.
Hi, Deborah Milbauer, Precinct 4, Town Meeting Member, obviously. This is a little repetitive from what Mr. Zulus and Ms. Carroll said, so I will read quickly. I am speaking on behalf of myself, as in my role as a public health professional. I teach public health at Northeastern. I rise to support the amendment to Article 3. There is much public health research that documents the association between parent behavior and the influence you have on your child's behavior. It might feel innocuous and overblown to consider not drinking in front of them, but think about this example. Did you know that during the Super Bowl, children watch an average of 1 hour of alcohol commercials, sometimes paired with a room of drinking adults? This happens yearly, coupled with all the other events during the year, block parties, Halloween, summer cookouts, birthday parties, graduation parties, and the like. This is how social norms are established. You watch what others are doing, And the research tells us that children are especially impressionable by the environments they are raised in, both in the home and out in the world. Not one event or moment changes everything, but the accumulation of small events over the course of a child's lifetime influences their attitudes and behaviors towards underage drinking. In other words, shaping social norms. This article came to the Select Board and the Warrant Committee primarily as a business proposition and a legal issue about permitting events, as Mr. Zulus pointed out. However, the point of me rising to support this amendment is to share the public health perspective. Alcohol is a cross-disciplinary issue. Milton's public health bodies are the Board of Health, who oversee the Milton Health Department, who in turn oversees the Milton Coalition, formerly called the Milton Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition, as you heard Ms. Carroll say. It would have been a great opportunity for our public health folks in town to weigh in on this alcohol-related article. Unfortunately, the Board of Health's next meeting is March 3rd after tonight's vote, so they didn't have an opportunity to. This article is a reminder that future decisions about across town should consider and include public health. For example, public health is embedded in all of our town decisions. Transportation is public health. Housing is public health. And alcohol is public health. Collaboration with those in town with expertise should become standard practice moving forward, and as I dare say, it should become the social norm to do so. Thank you for supporting this amendment.
Thank you, ma'am. Does anyone else wish to speak to this motion to amend? In that case, we'll check in with our boards. So when we have a motion to amend, we check in with the submitting board and the warrant committee. Yes, Mr. Wells?
I'm going to speak to it first. I'm going to speak to the motion first. All right with you?
You're recognized, Mr. Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Richard Wells, Chair of the Select Board, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 7. So a little bit of historical fact. How do we get to this? How did this amendment come? For the record, I agree with much of what has been said about the public health issues, and I clearly understand from my life the public safety issues, as others do in this room that have been in the same business. When the deck was built in East Milton, for those of you who remember, it was initially intended to be 37 parking spaces. Through much dialogue and discussion, it was determined that it was a park. And one of the most important things that was said from the residents of East Milton, the citizens, the people in the Milton Arts Center, the churches, the schools around there, the Chamber of Commerce, everyone that I can think of, was that if we were going to build a new Manning Park, please bring it to life. At the time I was police chief, I thought about it, and I could see that when this was being done, that there would be events would want to take place. And one of the biggest advocates was the Milton Arts Center, which has become one of the gifts of our community. And way more than the Halloween stroll and the Christmas tree lighting, we've had several musical events there. We had a great Welcome Back to School event put on by the Chamber and the Arts Center, which was well attended, which had a one-day liquor license funneled through the Arts Center. And it was in this that we realized that the bylaw existed. And as I mentioned from the previous question, the Select Board does issue liquor licenses weekly or regularly. When liquor licenses are granted under Chapter 138 of the statute, there are criteria that goes with it. Anyone who in the room who's been on the Select Board knows that they're approved not just by the town administrator, they're approved by the police chief, they have a safety plan, a detail plan, all that goes with it. It's all codified under Chapter 138. With regard to fines under the town fines, all fines under Chapter 138 are mandated by statute. I can tell you that in 40 years in policing, I don't think I have ever recalled an incident where we've charged someone under the town bylaw on an alcohol violation. They're all codified and charged by statute, which gives a various discretion on fines and penalties. So I'm not really that concerned about the town part of it. Mr. Zulus is correct in how it's been so long as it's been codified, because I can't think of an instance where it's ever been used. In all the events that have taken place already at the park since it's been built, and if you think about the movie Field of Dreams, and one of the people from Howard Stein Hudson, one of the designers said to the town early on, if you build it, people will come. And from the time it was first built, and it's going back to the people in the MAC and the residents in the Chamber, everything that they've held there, people have come. There's been no violations. In every aspect of it, it's been safety has been the priority, and I think for everyone in this room that's been there knows how special these events have been. Milton Wharf Park in the Landing is about to go through a similar transformation to create a new asset for the citizens of the town. And in giving that in mind, this bylaw, the change in this bylaw, also came into reality. Which, should we change the bylaw, as many other communities have, to give people who want to host an event in a town venue, such as Manning Park or the Wharf Park.
Thank you. Before we go back to a rebuttal, so to speak, does anyone else any first speaker wish to speak to this motion to amend? We allow a second bite at the apple if there's no other first speakers. Seeing none, Ms. Carrells, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. Margaret Carrolls, Precinct 4.
Pardon me, Carrolls.
I respectfully disagree. I think the town condoning such events on town-owned land is very different than a private person or a private nonprofit holding an event. It sends a different message, and it's not the kind of town I want to live in, honestly. And then I think, you know what? You described all these great events that we have. Most of them have been alcohol-free, and they will still be great events without alcohol. We don't need alcohol to have fun. So I strongly urge a yes vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Seeing no other speakers. Do I have a speaker? Oh, yes, we do. Yes, sir. Thank you for running.
Sorry about that. Before the power goes out, Keith Schleicher, town meeting member, precinct number 4. I agree with Speaker Wells that we should have the availability to have these events if people want them. I'm not saying we need to have a keg at the Christmas stroll. However, I think having the availability, if someone says, you know what, I really want to have a wedding over the highway in Manning Park, can I have some champagne there? I think they should be allowed to do that. I don't want to belittle what other people are doing, but I think there's also people here that maybe don't have young children that do want to be with other adults on a town park for a sanctioned event. and be allowed to do that. So that's just what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to this motion? I see no one else running. In that case, this just requires a majority vote. If we could put up the poll, please. Pardon me? Oh, sorry, let me check. So, Select Board, your opinion on this motion to amend?
Oh, and I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Milano for a sec.
Mr. Milano, do you wish to speak? Okay, sidebar. Ladies and gentlemen, the Select Board has an idea that Chair Wells would like to propose to you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Richard Wells, Chair of the Select Board, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 7. I'd like to make a motion to split the question into 2 questions. I need a second. Thank you. Mr. Moderator, what I would propose doing is that the first question will begin after the word, beginning with the word entity, and we will accept everything in paragraph, I think it's line number, the line that begins with from the Select Board, we will accept everything from the word entity all the way to the bottom. So that would include everything on that paragraph and including the final 3 paragraphs for the purposes of the requirements and whoever violates with the fines.
So your intent is to accept the insurance, since Mr. Zulus kindly broke it up into 3 sections.
Yeah.
You're willing to accept the, you'd like to have the body think about the insurance and the fine as one
Yep.
part of this, of Mr. Zulus's amendment. And then I assume the second portion would be the concept of only allowing town buildings, not town land, as the second part of
That's
this
correct.
amendment.
That's correct.
That is your motion that's been made
That
and
is.
seconded.
Thank you.
Okay. Is everyone clear the intent of the Select Board's motion to divide the question?
Mr. Moderator, if I may? Mr. Moderator, if I may?
Yes, we have a point of order just for a moment.
Well, mine's probably the same. But go
Oh, well, okay, you're raising the point of order, then we'll get to Ms. Agostino's point of
Go
order.
ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, not quite, because in town meeting time, on page 113, it is allowed to divide a motion that's on the floor, and an amendment is a motion on the floor. So procedurally, it's allowed, but the body has to vote on this, on splitting this. Well, we're voting on splitting the amendment into 2 parts, into 2 amendments. That's what we're voting on. No, I don't. We're doing a procedural motion called dividing the question. So Mr. Zulus has put a motion before the body, and Mr. Wells has said, I want to split that amendment into 2, and it's been seconded. So now Mr. Zulus now has, there's 2 parts of this amendment. Procedurally, this is allowed under town meeting time, page 113, division of a question. Now, Mr. Zulus, yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator, Mike Zulis, Precinct 3, town meeting member. So the question is, do we support the amendment to divide the question?
Yes.
Okay. And I rise to oppose the motion to divide the question. I would like a vote on the amendment as stated. Thank you,
You'd
Mr.
like the
Moderator.
whole thing together. Okay, very good. Understood. So, is it clear right now what we're trying to do? We're voting on dividing it only. Prize for that woman right there with the scarf, yes. Does anyone want to speak to Mr. Walker? Do you want to speak to the motion to divide the question, or are you going back to something else?
I think I do. I'll take it one at a time.
Just a little closer to the mic, please. Thanks.
Leroy Walker, town meeting member, Precinct 10. I want to press you a little bit more, Mr. Moderator, on the point of order. There was an amendment proposed which stops discussion on the main motion until that amendment is either voted up or down. So I'm not sure we get to the question of dividing the motion until we vote on the motion on the floor, the amendment, up or down.
I believe that's would be the wrong procedure, because then we would have an amendment that had failed in its entirety, and we then have to have a motion to reconsider. We'd have to vote on that. Then we'd have to have a motion to divide it and vote on that. So this, I'll read the language specifically so it's clear. It says, when and only when a question is susceptible of division, a motion to divide it and vote on the parts separately is in order. So, we can take Mr. Zulis's amendment, split it in 2, if you so choose, and vote on splitting it. If you choose not to split it, we'll go back and consider it as a single amendment.
So if Mr. Wells' amendment is simply to divide the question without changing any language, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I'm good with that. Thank you.
Now, does anyone else wish to speak to the motion to divide the question? It only requires a majority to vote to do so. If we could put up a poll. All those in favor of dividing the question only, please signify by pressing 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 for abstain. The motion to divide the question passes by a majority vote of 125 to 104. Very good. In that case, Mr. Wells, since you addressed it, I think by voting on the second part first, that's the insurance portion and the fine, we'll vote on your proposal to vote on that first. Okay. So what we have now before us is voting on the language starting with the word, if we could put the amendment back up, Ms. Bosworth? Can we expand that some? Good question, thank you. Is that better? Okay. Can we zoom one more time? Sounds like that was the magic. Okay. 150%. So we're going to consider the portion that starts with, you see the words entity with care, custody, and control that's slashed out down to the end. All those changes, we're going to, if you want to discuss, we'll discuss, otherwise we'll go to a vote. Does anyone wish to discuss this, the portion starting with entity down to in only the text in blue and down to the $300 fine? If so, please come to the fore and speak. Okay, I see no one wishing to come down to the floor. Again, so we're now voting on this actual bylaw change. Since it's a bylaw, it only requires a 50% majority vote. Everyone clear what we're doing? Okay. Sorry. So on this, Select Board, you're in support. Warrant Committee, what's your opinion? Okay, Warrant Committee's weighing in. I'm sorry, Ms. Odlin, what's that? Sure. Ms. Bosworth, could you just scroll to the top and show the top of the Word doc as well, please? By the way, while they're voting, the facilities director said a transformer blew on Canton Ave, and that's what caused us and part of the town to go dark.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, ma'am?
Deborah Felton, Precinct 2. Could we have an opinion from the police chief on this article, if he's here?
Is Chief King here? Yes? While the Warrant Committee is voting, Chief King, you're recognized.
Hi, everybody. John King, Police Chief. Honestly, Deborah, I don't really have an opinion. I have kind of conflicting roles. I sit on the coalition. We've discussed this at length from a coalition perspective. I also sign off on the one-day liquor licenses, so I really have no personal opinion. I think the coalition comes under the health department. It would be inappropriate for me to speak to that. Police Chief, I'm pretty neutral on it, to be honest with you.
Thank you, sir. Warrant Committee, do we have a vote? Yes. Mr. Caldwell?
The Warrant Committee has voted, and we appreciate the amendments and the speakers from the floor. However, we accept the Select Board's motion as to Part 2 concerning the insurance and fines, and the Warrant Committee proposes a yes vote as to that section.
If you could speak right into the mic so everybody could hear you, sorry.
The Warrant Committee, has taken a vote on the matter, and we're requesting a yes vote as to Part 2 of the Select Board's amendment to the article.
Very clear, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me repeat again. We're talking about the second part is the insurance regulation, so to speak, as Mr. Zula spoke about it, and the $300 offense fine for the offense. We're voting on that right now only. We're not voting on whether it should be on town land. That'll come next. It's a majority vote. If we could open the poll. All those in favor of the motion before the body, please signify by pressing 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 for abstain. Part 2. Okay. Hey, Rob, if you could, we'll pause and we'll do it again, so we're right for the record. If you could change that to say Part 2. I will again. And if we could go put up the amendment again, Ms. Warrant Committee Clerk. So we're voting on, if you see about the, I'll start with the word entity. See the word entity there? Entity down to the fine that has the last 2 sections, as Mr. Zulis phrased it, of the insurance portion, which is the bulk of that blue text in the center, and then the fine down at the bottom. You're voting on accepting that portion. Is that clear? Okay. Now we'll go back to the poll. We'll wipe out the prior votes. We'll start again. All those in favor of accepting the motion to amend with this second part, 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 for abstain. The motion carries with a vote of 219 in favor, 213 opposed. All right, so we've accepted that second portion of Mr. Zulis's motion to amend. Now, we, per Mr. Wells' motion to divide the question, that's still on the table. We now have an opportunity. Anyone want to speak to the first part of the amendment, which in summary is about whether to allow the consumption on town buildings but prevent it on town land, if I understood that correctly, Mr. Zulus. That's a summary of your motion, or would you like to clarify that for the body then?
Yes, it allows it in town buildings, but not on town land.
But not on town land. Does anyone, now, we're in a new motion? Yes, ma'am, you're recognized.
Susan Kochvaser, Precinct 4, another one of those public health people that lives here in Milton. And I'd like to speak to this. In the remarks from the chair of the select board, it was discussed about the deck and about potentially Milton Landing after that's revitalized as places where we might want to have events with alcohol and for which one-day licenses would make sense for some of those events. I am concerned that this is so broad. This is town lands. I know there's a movie night at Kelly Field. There's the children's concerts on the gazebo. I know when my kids were little, a beer from some kind of a beer truck might have been nice, but I'm not so sure I need to do that or we need to do, we heard from Margaret Carroll's exactly why that doesn't make a lot of sense from a public health perspective. So I would urge us not to pass this now in this way so broadly because select boards do change and there's a clear vision of exactly what this would be for, but I think that's what the bylaw should be and not something as broad as this. And then I was also, you know, I'm part of the coalition and we really wanted to know what the Board of Health had thought about this. And if I can ask if the Board of Health has an opinion on this from a public health perspective. Thank you.
Yes. Ms. Kinsella, are you here with us tonight? I think I saw you.
I don't think is she speaking for the board or is she the Board of Health?
Are you Board of Health, ma'am, or Health Director? Perhaps you can come down to the mic. And do we have any members of the Board of Health here tonight, or is the chair of the Board of Health here tonight? Looks like not. Ms. Kinsella,
No.
I'm sorry, Board of Health chair?
No.
The chair's not here. Okay.
Hi, Caroline Kinsella, Precinct 8. I am the health director. I'm also a member, chair of the Milton Coalition. The Board of Health could not meet to discuss this before this special town meeting, and the Milton Coalition was aware of that they did not meet.
So
And
the
they
Board
won't
of Health had no opinion.
Correct.
Opportunity to make an opinion, I should say.
Correct.
Very good. That answer the member's question? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Kinsella.
Thank you.
Mr. Coachella.
Thank you. Tony Cicchello, Precinct 4, town meeting member. I wasn't really going to speak to this, but the more I think about it, I'm not a killjoy. But I just, for the life of me, can't understand why we're fighting to have alcohol-related events at Manning Park in the middle of a phenomenally busy series of intersections. All I hear about is all the complaints about the traffic in East Milton. And in the middle, essentially in the middle of a highway, we're talking about focusing on having alcohol-related events there. And again, you know, I go to a lot of different occasions with friends, family, where we have alcohol. I just don't think it's a great idea, especially for the town. I think the thing that's missing from this really is, if we're going to have alcohol, they should be on town property, in town buildings. It should be adult-only events. That's really the guts of it. But I think I support this amendment at a minimum to keep a lid on things. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else wish to speak to this portion of the motion to amend? Yes. We have a member, Mr. Wells. I'll recognize you next. Okay. If you could state your name slowly, sir. I heard Keith last time, but.
Keith Schleicher, Precinct 4. the select board can determine who or what gets the permit. It would be a shame to take away all that power to have a blanket no out there and not let them do their job and say, you know what, it doesn't make sense to have a booze fest at the Christmas stroll. However, if we want to do a fundraiser and have a men's soccer league play on the bottom portion of a field and allow a beer tent over there for adults, I think that that's appropriate. I don't want to see, I think a little bit less oversight and maybe some trust in our elected officials might work out for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wells, you're recognized.
Thank you, Richard Wells, Chair of the Select Board, Town Meeting Member Precinct 7. So just a point of order, what this would do to the events, if this were to pass as is, so just to take the MAC for Exchange, which in the summer has events outside in their backyard, this would preclude that because this amendment as written only applies to buildings, not to mention any of the other places that I've made mention of. And while select boards do change, the authority and the statutes and the faith you put in them does stay the same. To Mr. Ciccello's point, I thought the same, my friend Mr. Ciccello, when I first saw an event there, and it wasn't until I saw it with my own eyes that I realized the reality of what could be done when it's controlled, licensed, and policed. And it was they've been very effective for this community. Finally, the last thing I do, and I really want to mention this because I know Mr. McKay is here, and his committee on the WAF has done a tremendous job of trying to create a similar vision for WAF Park that could really be something. And to the previous speaker who talked about an adult or a family event, which is supervised and licensed, it'd be a shame for us to limit the use of that place. We're not talking about Friday or Saturday nights. We're talking about a few events a year that enhance the overall quality of life for the community that we all call home. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before I go to the Warrant Committee, Select Board, I assume you were opposed to this or portion? You're opposed, okay. And anyone else wish to speak to this while the Warrant Committee is voting? I see none. Okay, Mr. Caldwell, do you have an opinion?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. As to the motion to amend the article, the Warrant Committee recommends a no vote for the issues articulated by our Select Board.
Thank you. With that, we'll proceed now to a vote on this first part. Is everyone clear what we're voting on now? Okay, I'll restate it in short. Right now, you can't issue licenses to town buildings and town land. This is now going to allow it in town buildings and prevent it in town land. So we're voting on that in summary. So that's the language you see. If you read from the paragraph A, you can see that it says, if I go down to the third line, while in a building owned by the town of Milton or upon land owned by the town of Milton is prohibited, except, and this is when the change comes in, that one-day licenses for the drinking, sale, or possession of alcoholic beverages in a town building may be authorized. Since we're silent on the land, that means the land is still prohibited from receiving an alcoholic license, but the buildings are permitted now with the controls you have just authorized in that second part we voted on, the insurance controls, let me call it that, and with the fine. Does that help clarify it? Okay, did I get that right, Mr. Zulis? The essence of your, yes? I think so. Okay, very good. Warrant Committee, your vote stands, all right? With that, we'll go to a vote. Again, it's a majority vote. All those in favor of accepting the motion to amend, please signify by voting 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 for abstain. The motion passes by a vote of 117 to 114. With that, we'll proceed to Article 4. Okay, point of order. Yes, Mr. Mullins?
Peter Mullen, Precinct 2. I think we just voted on a motion to amend. It was defeated. Now we have to move on the whole article.
I'm not sure that's true. Actually, you're right. I paused. You're right. My mistake. We have to vote on the whole article. You're right. Jumped too fast. So what we've done is we amended the language that was published in the warrant, partially, actually in whole, by the language with Mr. Zulis's language, including the $300 fine. Now we need to vote on Article 3 overall. So let's go back. If you look at this Article 3, as you see printed up here, you're now going to vote on this whole thing. And again, this is a bylaw. It only requires a majority vote. Is that clear? Yes? Okay. Select Board, do you have any, Mr. Wells, any commentary? You're conferring, okay. While they're conferring, Mr. Zulis, do you wish to speak to this? No, you're just sitting. Okay. You need to speak, Mr. Wells?
No, we're still talking. Ridiculous.
So, Mr. Wells, does the Select Board have an opinion now on this article as completely amended?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Richard Wells, Chair of the Select Board, Town Meeting Member Precinct 7. With great reluctance, we voted unanimously yes to accept this for the benefits of buildings like the Council on Aging, the library, and those buildings. But we realized that our friends in the MAC just got screwed in that vote, and please don't lose sight of that. So that is our vote. Thank you.
So I just had a question. I don't think a lot of people, Keith Schleicher, Precinct 4, I don't think a lot of people knew what they were voting for with the yes or no vote. And with such a close margin, can we reopen the vote? I'm asking a question to the moderator.
We can have a motion to reconsider that vote.
I mean, because basically what we just did is told the MAC they can't have outdoor events anymore, but I can have a keg party at Tucker School if it gets approved.
Hang on, folks. Hang on, folks. So the idea of reconsidering a vote, let me just check my rules briefly. Yes, you can make a motion to reconsider that part 1 we just voted on. It would require a second, and it would require... Yes, sir.
I was under the understanding in past town meetings that that motion has to come from somebody who was in the losing side of the vote.
Actually, the winning side of the vote. Yes. We could check. That's your fair point.
So we need someone that voted yes to reconsider?
That's right.
If they want to? Oh,
Yes.
that wasn't me, so if someone did and they want to do it, great. If not,
Okay.
I'll sit down and we can continue.
So we don't have a motion to reconsider unless someone that voted yes on the prior amendment wishes to do so. Okay, Warrant Committee, do you? Pardon me? Yeah, the no's lost. Warrant Committee, do you have an opinion on this entire article now?
Probably should introduce
Just a
myself.
second, Warrant Committee, yes. Sir, do you have a question?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, a comment, okay. Please, yes.
God, this person must have been tall. Hi, Mark Croninger, Precinct 7, town meeting member. I'm really disappointed that this is being really miscast as that I think what Mr. Wells was actually saying was like, I live in East Milton. I've walked through those places many times, many days. I don't think there's any notion here that they're trying to create, keg party, beer-laden events by any means with these things. What they're trying to do is keep the option open for the appropriate events. And quite frankly, my kids are grown up. I don't really go down to the Christmas tree lighting, and whether or not there's wine there, maybe it's not appropriate to be. But to tie the hands and handcuff the select board's ability to do the right thing in some new properties, for instance, the landing that we haven't even seen yet, just wipe it out. I understand the evils of alcohol and all the things we've heard in our lectures here this evening. However, there should be some discretion for the board to figure out what's appropriate. And as somebody who's been very involved and whose family's been very involved with the Milton Arts Center for a long time, to handcuff what they do there, I don't know how many of you guys have gone there, there's alcohol served there, and my last recollection is no one was staggering around cursing or anything like that. That's not what it's about. It's having alcohol available at the appropriate events, not making alcohol-driven bashes. That's not what this is about. But by adopting that first part of the amendment, you've just handcuffed, going forward, the ability for the Milton Arts Center or the new landing that Mr. Wells spoke about or anything else with one blanket statement.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm speaking. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm speaking.
Excuse me, sir. Yes, sir. Your point of order is recognized.
We're debating whether we're voting.
Okay. Yes, sir. I thought you were going to offer a brief comment, but now you're kind of, we were going to a vote of the Warrant Committee.
Overall.
Overall. So if you could just please have a seat, because I think we're done with the debate. So thank you. Mr. Caldwell, you're recognized.
Tom Caldwell, town meeting member, Precinct 6, and chair of the Warrant Committee. The Warrant Committee votes yes that you approve the article as amended.
Okay. Now we'll go to a vote. Again, it's a majority vote on the entire article as amended with the text you saw up there in blue with the two parts. All in favor? No one came down to speak other than the one member, and the two bodies, so I closed the debate, so. I'm sorry. Sir, I believe we've debated this enough, I think. I did. And I believe I asked if anyone wanted to speak to this article to come down.
You
and
did
no one
on the
came down.
amendments. The amendments went through. Now you're voting on the question.
Yes,
Correct?
sir. That's correct. But I believe I offered everyone an opportunity to come down and speak to this overall article, and then we heard from the two
I
bodies.
missed
They
that.
are
I
in favor.
apologize.
Pardon
So I'd
me?
like to just speak on the question.
Sir, I'd rather wrap this up because we've heard.
Just a very quick point, that's all.
If I do that, I have to do it for everyone, sir. I'm sorry.
It was such a close vote, I just want to get it on the record.
Please, sir, I just shut this gentleman down because I'm trying to get to a vote so we can just move on because I think
20
we've heard from the
seconds,
body.
that's all, will be on the record.
Please, sir, have a seat. Please, sir. I'd like to just go to a vote now.
All right, just on the record, James Going, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We'll now proceed to a vote on the article as amended. All those in favor of the article as amended, please signify 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 for abstain. The article as amended passes with a vote of 173 to 54 with 7 abstentions. Now, we'll go to Article 4. Recommended that the sum of $1.7 million be appropriated for the purpose of financing the town's lead service line investigations and replacements, including costs incidental and related thereto. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow $1.7 million under and pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 8.5 of the general laws as amended, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore, and that the select board be and hereby is authorized to accept and expend, in addition to the foregoing appropriation, one or more grants or gifts from the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority lead replacement program or any other public or private funding source. Mr. Wells, you wish to speak to this, or you're going to waive? You'll waive. Very good. With that, this requires a 2/3 vote. Does anyone wish to speak to this article? Yes, Mr. Fahey, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Sean Fahey, Precinct 9. I just have a question. It's actually, I'm in support of this article, but my question is, we read down through the Warrant Committee's comments, this program will be ongoing and may require additional funding in future years to fully inventory and replace the lead service lines in town. Do we have any understanding of how much for 100% replacement throughout the town that it might cost us in future years?
Thank you. Mr. Wells? Ms. Fernandez, then? Yep. If you could introduce yourself, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes.
You're recognized.
Hi, my name is Marina Fernandez. I'm the Director of Public Works. So that's a great question. Thank you. There is approximately 2,300, don't quote me because it is a spinning wheel. We're always finding out more information about everyone's services, encountering information through historical data, as well as through field work that our staff are doing on a daily basis. So right now we are at approximately 2,300 unknowns. So we don't know what we don't know, right? So of those 2,300, there could be still some lead services left of them. The trend right now is that a little less than 2%, close to 1% of the services are currently lead. I do have some slides. Not sure if we...
Well, perhaps instead of slides, Mr. Fahey, was your
that
question
adequate?
answered, you think?
I guess my concern is for what it might cost the town. Right now, we're taking advantage of some financing that's available to us. And my question is, you know, what are we going to accomplish with this 1.7 million? Is that going to accomplish half of what we need to do? And in future years, will the town be paying for the balance of the replacements? That's
Okay.
really where I'm going. And how much might that be?
Ms. Fernandez, is that question more
And if I
clear?
could, the unknowns represent 25% of our residences, right? We now know 9,844 residences, so that number is about only 25% is unknown. So that's my question and my concern. How much might we face in the future, Mr. Moderator? That's my question.
Okay. Ms. Fernandez, is that more clear?
Yes, so starting 2027, the federal mandate is that we, as a community, are responsible for replacing all services laterals that are lead or galvanized services at a 10% rate. So in 2027, the clock starts on a 10-year out. So we will have to make those replacements at 10% of the services. And the 10% will be calculated not only based on what we know, but also of what we don't know, even if we are never to reach the 10% after the 10 years, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not sure I quite understood that as well, ma'am.
Mr. Moderator, all I'm trying to find out is what might the town face for cost? Is this a potential $2 million, $3 million down the road? I'm in favor of having 100% of the services in town not be lead, right? Replace all the lead in the town. We should do that. My question is simply, this 1.7 million is available to us now. When that's exhausted, are there any more public funds, or is it on the town of Milton to replace the balance? And if so, do we have any idea at all, any idea what it might be? What it might cost in dollars? That's my question.
Okay, I'll go to the Select Board Chair for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Richard Wells, Chair of the Select Board, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 7. So the funding system that comes from the state, the zero-based loans, just like our annual budgets, are funded on an annual basis, particularly on the state level, something I'm learning a little bit about. So it will be determined how much the state is already talking a lot about this, so we will have to compete each year, and I don't know how much you accomplish, but the question will be how many years the state carries out this program for. It sounds preliminarily like they know how significant this is way more than just us. The state of the water in the Commonwealth is a significant issue. These pipes, post-Civil War, that's when they were made, that's when they were first installed. So it's an annual question each year. And so I don't think that you could answer, any of us could answer it long term. Hopeful, but understanding the magnitude of the problem, I would be confident that this will continue. I hope that answers it.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else wish to speak to this? Yes, Ms. Felton.
Deborah Felton, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 2. I have a question. The lead pipes, is that in the roadways or sidewalks? And does this project also include then paving our roads or repairing our sidewalks? Because we've, on our street, and I'm sure many streets in Milton, you've had gas lines replaced or water lines replaced, and now your roads are a mess. And so I would like some information on that. Thank you.
Ma'am, you mean repaving them after the lines are repaired, repaving to smoother, understood. Yes. Ms. Fernandez, if you could answer that.
So the great majority of those lead services that are currently known are within the private property. So they are at the curb stop to the homeowner's property. And then there is a minority that is within the pressure side of the water services. So that is from the curb stop, which usually at most of your properties, the back of your sidewalk. And for those of you that do not have sidewalks, they are in the property line. So they're within the property line to the main. So they will not be, we will not be interfering with the roadway, and that will not require curb-to-curb restoration of the roadway. It will just be a spot repair, a repair to the sidewalk, and the great news, the good news is that services are usually pooled, so even when they are on private property, it doesn't require a lot of digging, because we're not trenching it, we're pulling that service and inserting a new one.
Sounds like that answered the question. Very good. Anyone else wish to speak to this article? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. It requires a 2/3 vote since it is a bonding issue. All in favor of Article 4, please signify by voting 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 for abstain. I declare a 2/3 vote, a vote of 227 to 3 with 0 abstentions. It's 9:40. Would anyone like to stand up and stretch for a minute? We've been here for 2 hours, just for a minute. Or are you all? If Ms. Gankarski were here, she'd say we should stretch just for a bit.
Hey, how are you? What's up, Cheryl?
Yeah. All right, folks, if everyone's had a chance to stretch, then we could reconvene. Folks, if we could come to order, thank you. I'll continue on with Article 5. It's a lengthy article. I'll just read the first couple sentences to give everyone a reminder of what it is. Recommended that the town vote to authorize the select board to petition the general court for special legislation establishing a means-tested senior citizens property tax exemption to provide property tax relief for certain eligible property owners as set forth below. So this is property tax relief for certain property tax owners. With that, Mr. Wells, would you like to speak to this article? And I believe you had some slides or not?
We're going to waive that, and let's see what happens. How's that, Mr.
You
Moderator?
waive. Very good.
We'll reserve our right.
Thank you. Then I think I saw, ma'am, were you first here? Or, yes? Okay, then you're recognized.
Hi, my name's Megan Haggerty, and I'm a town meeting member in Precinct 2. I wanted to speak in support of the article. I think that right now with the pending, the upcoming override vote, we are going to need a lot of support for our senior citizens. I have a question.
Sure.
May I ask?
Please.
So I noticed in the discussion, in the Warrant Committee's discussion, there was some debate around expanding the.
If you could stay close to the mic. So
Sorry.
Sure. Yeah.
I noticed that there was some debate around expanding the eligibility to folks who had rented for quite some time and then maybe more recently bought. And my question is, do we understand, what the universe of those individuals is, and is there a projected increase? What's the magnitude of the projected increase to the town of including those individuals?
So the question is how many renters in town and what the rate of increase might
Yeah,
be?
just what's the difference? What would have been the difference of the cost to add those folks in?
I'm sorry, what was that last part again?
What would have been the difference in the cost to have added those?
The renters in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Warrant Committee, is that a known item? Warrant Committee, no? Or yes?
We don't need past the property owners. So there'd be no way to tabulate that question as posed.
Sorry, you said you don't know. Could you say that again, Mr. Wells?
How would you, there's no way to tabulate that. How would you tabulate that? You're talking about renters. How would you?
Maybe one part, do you know how many renters we have in town? Is that the first part?
How would we tabulate who rents and who owns? It's not a question that anyone answers.
So I think the discussion was potentially including folks who had rented in Milton for a short period of time and then became homeowners with the total amount of time equaling at least 10 years. I just didn't, my question was the magnitude of that population analyzed in the debate? Like, was that factored in? And it doesn't have to be precise. I mean, was there a range?
Mr. Milano, you recognized?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Nicholas Milano, Town Administrator. We did discuss it with the Warrant Committee. It's hard to put a number on that. What we know for certain is that in tax year 2022, which is the year we have data for, there are about 415 filers in Milton who qualified for this exemption. Now, what % of those people may have rented before they owned, we can't put a number on that. And it was drafted to require that they have been homeowners. So that is the requirement, that they're domiciled and have owned a home. There's no real way to kind of parse through those numbers to get to what you're looking for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Milano. With that, Mr. Furse, you're recognized.
Thank you. Brian Furs. I rise to support this article, but I do have a couple of quick questions for clarification. One is regarding the quote here about the $30 per year. Just curious about, from the 400 and some odd potential filers, how many were assumed to be filing? Was that 400 or was that half of them? So how do we come up with that $30 number? And my second question was just around the balance of the town covering. Was there any consideration given, and at some point could there be consideration given to having these properties pay that difference at some point, perhaps at sale or transfer in the future through some sort of lien? Those are my two questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Wells? Mr. Milano, you're recognized.
Thank you. So we had looked at how this is utilized in other communities. To your first question, there are a number of communities that have implemented it, some more recently than others. They have seen that it sometimes has about a 30% uptake in the first year, and then as the program, people get more familiar with it, those can increase. Milton obviously has a higher than most other communities share of homeowners, so we might be on the higher end of that threshold. But we had run a scenario so basically it was 200 local applications at a 50% match, which is what the number the select board had talked about, which is what the basis of the $30 approximate increase per taxpayer would be. So that would be of the 415 filers, about half of them would have applied, have been deemed eligible, and have gotten basically a 50% match on their tax break through the senior circuit breaker tax break.
There was a second part to the question about,
Oh, yes.
I guess, a recoup, perhaps, upon sale of the taxes that had been waived. Had that been considered?
It had not been considered, it hadn't really been contemplated. It's something we can do some more homework on. It hadn't come up in conversation, so I don't have a good answer for you. I apologize.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to this article? Okay, seeing none, we will go to a vote. It just requires a majority vote. All in favor, please signify by pressing 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 for abstain. This passes by a majority vote of 218 yes, 5 no, 1 abstain. Thank you. Just a minute, please. Okay, Article 6. Recommended that the town vote to amend Article 6 of the 2019 February special town meeting by adding the following positions to the school building committee established by said Article 6. Superintendent of schools non-voting, town administrator non-voting, director of consolidated facilities non-voting, individual with MCPPO certification appointed by the school committee non-voting, school principal appointed by the school committee non-voting, local budget official appointed by the town administrator non-voting. Does anyone wish to speak to this article? Seeing none, just requires a majority vote. All in favor of Article 6, please signify by voting 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 for abstain. The motion carries by a vote of 217 yes, 5 no, 1 abstain. When we go to Article 7, I would like to entertain, you're going to speak about motion to defer, Mr. Zulus? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mike Zulis, Precinct 3 Town Meeting Member. Mr. Moderator, I would move to move Article 7 to the end of the warrant because the chair of the school building committee is out of town tonight, and we'll be back
to speak
tomorrow
to
night.
this tomorrow, right? Is there a second? This just requires a majority vote. Let me just confirm that. Yes, I think we can dispense with the electronic voting. All in favor of moving Article 7 to after Article 15, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's unanimous. Thank you. We will go to Article 8. Article 8, recommended that the town of Milton appropriate the amount of $3,500,000 for a renovation project for the 3rd and 4th floors of the Cunningham School, 44 Edge Hill Road, Milton, Mass., and that to meet said appropriations, the treasurer with the approval of the select board is authorized to sell and issue bonds or notes of the town, etc. This requires a 2/3 vote. I'd like to recognize the chair of the school committee. Ma'am, are you ready? Okay, just getting your slides ready. I think we snuck up on you by skipping ahead.
Good evening, Lizzie Carroll, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 3, Chair of the School Committee. And yeah, those last couple of articles moved quickly, and I have to unlock my computer here. We do have a brief presentation, but I think I'll just offer some framing remarks and then see where the questions take us, and if we need to pull up slides, we can do that, if that's okay. My computer is locking me out. Can I look? I'm sorry. I know, I did spend time preparing the remarks that I wanted to share on behalf of my committee, and so I want to make sure that I say that. Sorry, everybody. So, OMG. Thank you, Dr. Miranda. Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. So first, I just want to start by appreciating the support of the Warrant Committee, the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, and the Select Board for this article, which has been the result of a lot of hard work over the past 2 years. I want to acknowledge a lot of effort by our former chair of the Facilities Advisory Committee, Mark Loring, our current chair of that advisory committee, Anna Varghese, our superintendent, Dr. Peter Burrows, and Tom McCarthy. Director of Consolidated Facilities for the town. The excellent comment from the Warrant Committee really provides a very thorough summary of how we arrived at this point, coming before town meeting now to request this $3.5 million that would allow us to begin the work on the renovations at Cunningham this coming summer. That would provide much needed classroom space beginning next fall. And so by bringing this article forward here at the February town meeting, we are able to expedite the helpful impact of this investment in our town's facilities and support our students and educators immediately with some relief of the overcrowding. In the first place, we began exploring this option of renovating the 3rd and 4th floor at Cunningham and Collycott to respond to feedback that we had heard from our educators and our school leaders throughout all of our elementary schools, but specifically at Cunningham and Collycott, about the negative effects of what has by now been well documented severe overcrowding in those school buildings. I do want to acknowledge the nuanced context that caused the school committee to actually reconsider this article before ultimately bringing it forward tonight. We originally approved the request in October and then voted to officially submit this article in January. We then reconsidered it as recently as today. As we're all surely aware, Milton is in dire need of an operational override, and the work to prepare for that has already been underway. Per the Select Board's decision last week, we will be voting on our April 29th election day and then at our annual town meeting in May on this operational override. And there will be much more information forthcoming over these next 2 months. The school committee's #1 priority is to work toward passing the override that we need to maintain services for our students and to protect Milton employees' jobs. We're actively working to close the projected budget gap for this current fiscal year and are finalizing our FY26 budget request in cooperation with the Select Board. We want to ensure the public understands, along with obviously all of town meeting, that like all capital funding requests, this funding request is completely separate from the operational budget. It would be paid for through bonding that would not impact the town's budget until FY27, and it could not otherwise be used to cover operational costs within the town. Even though this capital request and the pending override request address different needs of the schools and come from different funding sources, the school committee would like to emphasize that if any town meeting member feels like you can only support one funding request for the schools this year, we would ask you to please reserve your support for the operational override this spring. As vital as these overcrowding solutions are to ensure the quality of our children's education and the quality of our schools, which impacts the quality of life for all of us in Milton, our ability to sustain operations as a school district in town must be the top priority. That said, we know that the existing space issues within our schools are urgent and long-standing. They are damaging our kids' education every day, making life more challenging for our educators every day. And we believe this request is our best short-term solution to helping provide some relief to our students and our teachers. As I mentioned, we do have a brief presentation. We'll hold it for right now. If you have questions about more details of the project, we can answer those. Thank you.
Does anyone wish to speak to this article? Yes, ma'am, you're recognized.
Sheila Varela, town meeting member, Precinct 8. So I'm a bit confused because it's my understanding that this money for the renovation of the Cunningham is capital. So why are you saying that you don't want to go forth with it if it's capital? Because capital doesn't add to operational.
Ms. Carroll.
Thank you. Let me be crystal clear. We are going forth with the recommendation.
We appreciate the support of the Warrant Committee, the Select Board. What I'm trying to explain on behalf of the school committee is that we take very seriously the concern that we need to stay focused on the operational override in this moment. And so we are sticking with this request, which is why we are here seeking your support of it. The point I was trying to make is that if anyone out there is feeling like, you know, our schools have too many needs at this time, which is the truth. We have needs. We have a variety of needs. We have overcrowding that we need to address. We have a structural deficit into our town budget, which is also impacting our school's budget that we need to address. So we are just trying to acknowledge the complexity of this moment for our town and for our schools. And so having paused to really make sure that we should and would still seek this funding, this $3.5 million in capital funding to support this renovation project. We did consider that, and we have chosen to move forward with this request, which is what we're here to talk about. So does that answer your question? Does anyone, was that clear?
Ms. Varela, did that answer your question?
Yeah, just for a brief follow-up. I appreciate that and I understand it, but for people at home and in the town who are already, you know, all of a sudden starting to pay attention to the operational override, un poquito, I think it's going to be confusing because capital and operational are different. And I respect what you're doing, but I think it might be confusing to them that they might think that capital can be used for operational.
Yeah.
So
well, that's why,
just clarify that.
Yeah, thank you.
You
That's
know,
why I
that's
did
why.
say the reason we're proceeding with this request is based on that clear understanding.
Good, so people know
which is
that.
important,
Yeah.
as I said, for both the public and obviously town meeting. You know, and some of our newer town meeting members may have less experience navigating
right.
the difference between capital requests versus operational. And so, yes, it can't be underscored enough, so thank you for
Thank you.
following up on it. But yes,
Okay,
two
thank you.
separate buckets of money, two separate sets of needs for our district.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Swenson, you're recognized.
Yes, I just had a comment. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
I wanted to support this article. Can you hear me okay? Denny Swenson, Town Meeting, Precinct 5. I just wanted to stand in support of this article. You know, I've heard about space issues for many, many years. This falls under the capital column, so it's really okay to support this. It provides needed space for our youngest children, and it does so quickly. So please join me in supporting this article. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, you're recognized.
Yes, David Cornish, Precinct 10, Town Meeting Member. I just had a question for the school board. I am concerned about the overcrowding right now, and I was a middle school classroom teacher for 47 years, albeit not in the Milton Public Schools. So I'm very empathetic towards the students and the teachers and their parents. But I'm wondering if you've considered renting and putting up a temporary modular classroom building on the property that you've acquired from the Lamb Estate. I mean, I worked at an independent school many years ago, and they put up a temporary modular building that really lasted quite a few years before they got the funding to build a permanent building. So I'm just wondering, rather than spend $3.5 million on renovating Cunningham, you get a modular building that would accommodate all the schools, and hopefully at a much less price. And if it turns out that a permanent building is not needed or can't be done, that modular building could be used for a number of years until the overcrowding declines.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Loring? Yeah.
Hi, Mark Loring, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8, School Committee Member on the School Building Committee and the Facility Advisory Committee. The Facility Advisory Committee has looked at modulars. We've not looked at the Lamb Estate. The Lamb Estate is the land that's been identified for the new school construction through the school building as approved by the town meeting. So that has not been looked at for development to like clear it and then put modulars on that. That would create some programmatic concerns given you would need to pull programming from all the other schools where the overcrowding currently exists, put them in there, and so you'd essentially have to create almost a new school temporarily on the site. Then if you then move forward with building a new school, what do you do with those kids on site? So it creates some complication in terms of using the Lamb Estate. We have had discussions of using modular construction. At the current buildings, the issue there, again, is just land at Tucker, at Cunningham, Collicott especially. Glover has a little bit more, but that would only support Glover. What, as the facility advisory, we really looked at was that the Cunningham fourth floor is current space, permanent space within the building already that is not being maximized. So our goal was to utilize how do we best maximize current facilities. The fourth floor is not developed, could be developed through this plan. And so the goal is that it both addresses kind of the short-term facility needs. We can move forward on that this summer, as well as provide a long-term capital asset to the school district, to the town, to utilize kind of in perpetuity. And it would do so at a site that has the most severe overcrowding issue right now, which is the Cunningham Collicott, given it houses the most students and across kind of the elementary school buildings. So that is why this project was prioritized.
Thank you.
Hope that answers.
That answer your question, Mr. Cornish?
I just want to make sure what you're saying is that it's not efficient to do this, to have a modular building, that you've both cost-wise and functional-wise.
Yes, as compared to the Cunningham fourth floor option, we find the Cunningham fourth floor option provides us the quickest, most efficient way of addressing it without creating programmatic challenges to the school department, because obviously the kids are already within the building. We don't have to then transport them to some other place off site. So it's kind of the quickest and best. And again, it provides us a long-term asset. Modulars can last a little while, but certainly not as long as a permanent facility, which obviously the fourth floor is a part of.
So would this make the permanent building, you wouldn't have to build as big a building because of the renovation at Cunningham?
No, so this is not a substitute for, I mean, this builds for classrooms and some offices. This is not a substitute for a full school project. And again, that is under the purview of the school building committee and not the facility advisory committee or the school committee. So we are not, we are hoping to address a short-term and provide long-term assets kind of at the same time to maximize the limited resources of the town and make sure we're kind of getting the biggest bang for the buck.
Okay, because I thought that
Mr. Cornish, if you could bundle up all your questions at once.
Yeah, I thought that the point of the new building was because of the overcrowding.
Yes, the point of the new building is the overcrowding. This is a separate project from that project, because the new building through the MSBA process would be several years away, kind of best case scenario, if the town decides to support it at the time.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Doyle, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Arthur Doyle, Precinct 7 member. There are some of us in this room who attended this building when it was Mary A. Cunningham Junior High School. We remember the fourth floor very well because it was our favorite cafeteria. I have a question for clarification. I'm very interested in knowing if the classrooms are going to be on the 3rd floor or the 4th floor or both floors, and if so, what school grade levels will be on each of those floors? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Loring.
Yes, the 4th floor, given kind of its open nature, would actually become the library. The current library, which has already been segmented up into a couple classroom spaces and some offices, things like that, would be kind of revamped and would become 4 classrooms and kind of multiple offices. So the classrooms would be on the 3rd floor, library would be on the top floor. There'd be a couple offices, staff offices on the top floor for staffing such as community schools programming, and then there'd be additional offices on the 3rd floor. In terms of the exact grades that would go in those rooms, that is yet to be determined. That's something that we defer to the school district staff to kind of determine at that point in time. I know right now I believe there's a 2nd grade French classroom in there and another 2nd grade or maybe 4th grade classroom. So that's approximately the age that's kind of on that 3rd floor right now.
Thank you. Mr. Furs, I think you're next, and then Mr. Kelly.
Hi, Brian Furs, Precinct 10, Town Meeting Member. I support fixing our problems in our overcrowding. I have a quick question, and it's because we moved Article 7. I am just curious about what the study for Article 7 is and how it would impact the work that's being done for 8. I'm just trying to connect the two. So if you could just detail that, I would appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Loring.
Yeah, the funding for Article 7 is related to funding for the MSBA feasibility study. So that is separate from this. MSBA is aware of this project. The two are connected in that they are both related to the overcrowding issues we have within the schools, but doing the work here does not necessarily change anything around Article 7. Article 7 is the required funding that the town needs to allocate in order to have funding for feasibility and schematic design through that phase of the MSBA process. And then at the conclusion of that, the school building committee, along with the MSBA, will do evaluations of different designs. And again, I think Sean O'Rourke can speak to this even better than I when he comes. But do different evaluations and designs, and then eventually present to the town kind of a plan for new school construction at that point. But that is separate from the 4th floor project.
Do you have a follow-up, sir?
Yeah, quick. Totally understand that. The Article 7 specifically references a study for an elementary or middle school project for the Cunningham School.
Yeah.
So my question is the study, whatever you're studying, will it eliminate what you're doing? Is it going to eradicate what we're spending this $3.5 million on eventually?
No, it's not going. Again, the hope is that the study helps address the overall overcrowding issue that exists within Cunningham and Collycott and Tucker and Pierce and Glover and the high school everywhere. So that's the hope. The reason Cunningham is specifically cited is because in our statement of interest to the MSBA, you have to select a particular school. Cunningham was selected because of the overcrowding that is existing at Collycott Cunningham, and that's the site that the MSBA came and walked through with the select board and school committee and school building committee.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly.
Brian Kelly, Precinct 7. I'm a little confused. I've heard of burn the boat theories before and showing commitment about what you want to do. But I don't understand. I think you have a wonderful opportunity here. We don't know what the future holds. We don't know if the override will pass. Wouldn't it make sense to at least get something this year if that doesn't work? Are you telling me to vote for this, or are you telling me not to vote for this? I'm really confused. You want me to vote for it? Okay, but she's saying if there's town meeting members that are concerned about the override, then they shouldn't vote. I don't know how that has any impact. It's already public. It's already out there. You got it on the menu tonight. Wouldn't you tell us to embrace this? It's like a spare tire, okay? If you get a flat, you get something. I don't know.
I'm just perplexed at the comments of, I don't know whether you're asking us, people are saying you're asking us to vote yes on this. I'm fine with that, but I didn't get that message from what you said.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Carroll, you were to clarify the position of the
So,
school committee.
Again, I think that has been clarified. I appreciate your feedback, and I do apologize for any confusion. The point was, quite honestly, to try to demonstrate some humility and to clarify our focus in this really challenging moment that we face as a town. So I apologize that my attempt to do that on behalf of my colleagues did not convey that clearly for you, Mr. Kelly, and Ms. Varela and others. I think I'll leave it there. I do believe at this point the position is clear. Is that true? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Neely, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Richard Neely, Town Meeting Member Precinct 3. What I'd like to hear is the benefits to the students. In the written material and the verbal material tonight, we've not heard about the students. I'd like to know how many students will benefit. I'd like to know whether there'll be any increase in the number of students that will be added to the building. But we should be speaking in all of our materials about the benefits to the clients, and the clients are our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Burrows, Dr. Burrows, pardon me.
Great question. Peter Burrows. Hello. Good evening. Yeah, I mean, the impact to students would be very significant. We have over 1,200 students going into the library space every day. So that space would see every student in Collycott and Cunningham would be in a real library. Right now, on the 3rd floor, our library is cut up into many, many different spaces. Those of you who have spent time in there know when we brought MSBA to look at our schools and to look at Cunningham and Collycott, that was the place that they went into and were kind of like eyes wide open. This is a problem and needs to be fixed. So this would have a real impact. It would also have a real impact long-term for students. In looking at the MSBA process, which is roughly a 5-year-long process, we've talked about this project being important for the life of Cunningham and Collycott. It's a short-term solution, but it's a long-term investment. Meaning, if and when a new school is built, this space will be used in perpetuity and will make it a learning space that is highly impactful and meaningful to students. So I think it's an investment that's going to pay huge dividends.
Thank you. Mr. Walker, do you wish to speak to this?
Leroy Walker, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 10. To Ms. Carroll, I understood the point you were making quite clearly. No apology needed. There is something that we need to always be cognizant of, and in this case, it is that if we are doing a bonding project for $3.5 million, those bonds ultimately raise your tax rate for a period of time. If we're doing an operational override, that raises your tax rate permanently. So the point was, if you can support both, great. I hope you do. I support the $3.5 million project. But her point was, if you have to choose, the school committee's view is that they need the override more than they need that $3.5 million project. That was the point. I get it. Vote your conscience. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this article? No one wishes to speak, so we'll do that. This requires a 2/3 vote, as it is a bonding item. We'll put up the poll. All in favor of Article 8, please press 1 for yes, Opposed, no. 2. Abstain, 3. I declare a 2/3 vote of 220 to 8. Folks, I have 1025. I've been told this is largely a housekeeping article on 9. If you're up for one more, or you're up for one more. Okay. Then with that, we have a green sheet. The first of the green sheets tonight is Article 9. Everyone have that? I won't read it, but basically we're adding a map to come in compliance with the law.
Yes.
So, Ms. Hall, you're recognized.
Good evening, Meredith Hall, Chair of the Planning Board Committee and Town Meeting Member, Precinct 3. This really is a housekeeping item. We have, in recent years, passed multiple zoning articles, mixed-use zoning articles, which now allows for residential development in commercial zones. So what you're looking at is a sum. This is one parcel here, but there's another map also. Yes, the larger map. So this is, you're looking from sort of east to west, everything from the Lower Mills Business District all the way over to Central Avenue. This zoning is going to allow for some really exciting projects, which you'll soon be hearing about. But when the zoning articles were passed, the map was not included. So we are simply tonight voting to update that mixed-use overlay zoning map. So, and the Brook Road parcel was also never included, so we're just updating those maps so that they coincide with the zoning articles that we've already passed at town meeting.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. Does anyone wish to speak to this article? I see people standing, but I think not. Okay. This requires a 2/3 vote, as it is zoning. If we could put up the poll, all in favor of this article, please, 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 for abstain. Is what? I declare a 2/3 vote. Entertain a motion to adjourn until 7:30 tomorrow night. Second. All in favor signify by saying aye, please. Aye. Opposed, no. It's unanimous. Thank you. We'll see you 7:30 tomorrow night, Tuesday. Thank you.